Illari is a super high skill ceiling support hero who has strengths that may surprise you. Did you know that her heal beam heals 120 per second? And the Pylon adds another 40 per shot. As it turns out, Illari is a fairly balanced support with a lot of value to be had for the whole team, while she also can once in a while pop off with headshots. In today's video, we're going to break down the legendary rank 1 support player ML7 in his first couple days streaming the new character. While the ceiling of the hero is likely to evolve over time, there is huge lessons to learn from ML7's gameplay. And we'll get right into it after this quick message. Today's video sponsor is NVIDIA, who's kicking off Season 6 with their Ultimate Invasion bundle, which comes included when you pick up one of their 40 series cards, desktops, or laptops. The reason why you need to get an NVIDIA card is because they're always in the top of the line when it comes to performance. The 40 series cards has Overwatch 2 running at 360 frames per second. That's insane. NVIDIA also has a Overwatch setting that every player should turn on as long as you have a 9 series card or above. It's called NVIDIA Reflex. What Reflex does is cut down on system latency by up to half, making your game a lot more responsive. System latency is the natural lag time between your inputs and your system recognizing them and putting them into the game. You need every millisecond of advantage in Overwatch because it's so fast. So every Overwatch player should turn on NVIDIA Reflex if you've got the hardware to support it, and if you want superhero performance, you pick up a 40 series card. When you do so, you'll get the Ultimate Invasion bundle, which includes $50 worth of in-game content. It includes all 3 Invasion story missions, the Premium Battle Pass plus 20 tier skips, skins, and much more. You can check out NVIDIA's 40 series of cards and the Ultimate Invasion bundle by clicking the link below. As every gamer should know, NVIDIA is the absolute best for gaming, so check them out in the link in the description right now. First up, let's check out a neutral team fight. What's the base kit, the gameplay loop you're going for with Illari? The thing to remember most is that without her ultimate, Illari has no engage tools, so instead, what ML7 will always do in a normal fight is set up the healing Pylon in a position that's safe out of line of sight, position on cover to shoot back at the enemy, but also close enough to his tank to be able to pump in the big amounts of heals, which you definitely want to be doing because her biggest tool and asset is her ultimate, which we'll get into talking about later. But overall, the base gameplay flow of the character is peeking out to try to land a headshot, often in a supportive fashion. You're not going to expect to full out snipe characters yourself a lot of the time. We'll talk about that later, but poke, prod, keep your team alive, and try to pressure down the enemy for an advantage. After watching many hours of ML7 play, I can say that he does not move from a position of advantage until there is an advantage. Illari is surprisingly glass for a support. Her movement's not too crazy and her hitbox is fair, so you're not going to expect her to be able to dodge shots as well as a Kiri, Lucio, or Moira might, despite having the healing Pylon to rely on. Let's look more carefully at this opening team fight on the new map New Junk City, and notice how ML7 is doing all the things I just told you. I love this position because it lets Illari do everything you want to do. Jiggle peek out to make an attempt at a headshot, and if you don't have an advantage, come back in cover, and the spacing for the beam heal is exquisite here. The Zarya in front or the Hanzo gets advantage of that 120 healing per second, so what you notice, a lot of sustained pressure damage like Bastion poking from the distance is going to struggle to get Zarya down, because as soon as we turn to heal her, or the Hanzo who's trying to peek, they get up to full health rather quickly. Our first Pylon didn't work, so we throw our second one safely around a corner, all the while in between making attempts to weave in headshot pressure. And if we do land a headshot, although it's unlikely that we'll be able to hit them again in time before they get around cover, that's an enemy that is leveraged off of the front line. The enemy is using so many cooldowns to try to get a kill somewhere, and they just can't do it. You can't stand to keep shooting if you're at chip health yourself. Or if the enemy uses cooldowns to engage and you use a big burst of heal, they start to run out of gas. Soldier and Bastion are kind of the key heroes that Illari is built to counter, at least at medium range anyway, where her damage is just as competent and her heal numbers are so insane that you're not going to slowly whittle down her team if she's set up. She's designed to snipe back and easily out-heal any pressure damage. Next, let's talk a bit about her weapon and how to aim it. Some really important stats for you. Her full charge sniper will do 75 damage to the body, and it's only a 1.5 multiplier to the head. That's important because you're not going to expect to be able to one-tap a Tracer. So that means her damage profile will allow you to 2-tap to the head or 3 to the body. And oftentimes, as an enemy takes extra damage from other sources, you won't need the full charge up to land in order to secure an elimination. In ML7's aim practice, he does a mix of practicing his tracking and his flicks. This is going to be crucial for your Illari gameplay, as you'll need to be able to get locked into a duel with something flanking you and defend yourself through headshots. Other characters have lots of other escapes, but Illari is going to feel pretty easy to overwhelm if you don't land shots. I think the easiest aim tip that we can employ into our own gameplay, even if we aren't the #1 ranked support player in the world, as we're employing the base playstyle of Illari, jiggle peeking off of cover, try to make sure to keep our crosshair at head height so that when we strafe out, all we have to do is pull the trigger and hopefully whittle something down at range. The skill ceiling will be maxed out as you hit crazy flick shots on flankers on top of you, but the base playstyle is all about adding poke pressure, healing your tank, and working up to your ultimate. The reason for that is there's some pretty harsh realities of the capability of her weapon. Because it takes a full second in order to get the full charge, a 2-second time to kill is not that impressive. It's a big amount of burst damage, it's ammo efficient, it's a ranged hit scan support character that kind of can snipe, but it's so slow that oftentimes you'll find that your enemies are going to be able to duck away and hide and get healed up before you can hit your second shot. So don't expect to be the one who's always securing the kills, but landing extra damage will definitely create pressure and openings for your team to be able to advance. The way Illari makes space is by hitting damage. There's some matchups where Illari is going to have a medium range advantage, especially if Mercy's damage amping her, but against most medium range hit scans in the game, I don't think she has an advantage. It's just a bonus and a perk that she can add poke pressure while also being a support. We're used to Kiriko being in the game for so long now, and we know the peak of her impact, but kind of acknowledge that it's unreliable. Once in a while, you add a big headshot, or you get in close and then wipe out everybody. Illari's less at the extremes of performance and is more reliable since it's a hit scan weapon, but it's capped off at that fire rate, so it's going to be hard to expect to simply out-aim every DPS. It's about as much carry as a support gets, but you're not going to be able to play as brazen as you might be able to with Kiriko. Because remember, Illari's got limited mobility, and so much of her power to help her team is in close range to them. The heal beam does not go very far, and while the healing pylon can be placed fairly far away, around 15 meters is going to be good, it's still not going to necessarily let you off angle or backline the enemy like other supports can. So instead, be patient, bait enemies in, and keep poking until you or your team hit a shot. Now let's talk about some Illari tactics. The healing pylon has about a 15-meter effective range from what we can gather from testing. ML7 will most commonly place it above in a spot that either the team wants to hold or is likely to retreat to. In desperation, he'll throw it out for an extra bit of healing during a team fight, but for the most part, you want to set these up pre-fight into a spot your team's going to hold for a while. Perhaps more of an advanced tip for you is using the healing pylon as your own personal shield. Placing it at head height right in front of you as you take a sniper duel will most likely have it absorb a sniper shot, really evening the odds against the characters that can one-hit you, but you have to 2-tap them. Especially in the poke phases of fights, before they're actually committed, this can be extremely effective and kind of low cost. As long as your team's not committed to a fight, you can dedicate to taking a duel yourself without them expecting or needing you to heal them. Likely a lot of the damage and attention going towards you instead. That makes space alone. And the upside is you get a pick outright. In the meantime, you can use her mobility ability, Outburst, in order to dodge enemy threats coming onto you. Outburst is on a 7-second cooldown, and in this clip, we're going to see a series of great uses of it from ML7. On a 7-second cooldown, ML will often use it to gain a positional advantage where he can, jumping up to the high ground to deploy down his hit scan aim, assuming the enemy is far enough away that you're not going to get jumped on. Noticing as well, always setting up around his healing pylon. So that means as he peeks around cover and takes incidental chip damage, the pylon's going to heal him up. And while some ranged characters are very strong against Illari, I think Soldier's one of the weaker ones, at least at the higher skill tier. Healing pylon will heal away some of that chip damage even from Soldier sights, and she can snipe headshots back. But as things start to get too hairy, using Outburst to clear the distance to get behind the next piece of cover, and just in the nick of time, the very next Outburst is a life-saving one, dodging backwards away from the Doomfist punch. I don't think you're going to expect to be like Moira fading into the enemy's backline with this ability, because you can still get hit, but its big utility is knocking enemies away. So especially hard engaged characters that physically need to get on your backline, even just using it to boop to send them off course like a Ryan pinning or a Doomfist punching can be a great utility for the team. An important bit of support tech for you guys, if you don't already know, pressing the jump button as a character with knockback like Winston jumps on you while moving away with the momentum of the knockback will send you even farther. As ML7 shows us, this has an amplified effect with Outburst, which combines the two principles together. Use that when it's really time to GTFO and gain some serious distance from those dive tanks. Conversely, you also can do a short bunny hop after Outburst in a direction, when you time the jump at the end of Outburst in order to maintain some of its momentum. That's how you're going to want to focus on using it. Or, once in a while, using it to extend your mobility into your ultimate Captive Sun. That is the one time where you can 1-2 punch to send yourself in aggressively and then fly indefinitely during the ultimate. Captive Sun is one of the best engagement tools in the game, allowing Illari to freely fly and set up where she wants to go. You want to place it in the middle of the enemy because dealing damage with hitting it isn't as important as applying it to more targets, because the more targets you add it to, the more likely you're going to get a chain of explosions as the enemy tries to run away. But because it applies a slow and then an extra explosion after the target takes 90 damage, it's very likely to get full team wipes with this frequently. The Sunflare debuff can be cleansed with Suzu or taken off the character with Zarya Bubbles and other phase out abilities like Reaper or Moira Fade, but applying it to anything applies so much free damage that I think I've noticed that it's very difficult for the enemy to survive. But we haven't properly seen all the meta supports be tested, seeing as there's a lot of new things to be trying here early in Season 6. The ways I've seen it used most effectively is breaking those stalemates. Illari can't get in most of the time, but once she has her ultimate, she can get the ground she wants and apply a devastating debuff that either makes space or outright wipes the enemy. It's so flexible though, you can apply it in a variety of situations. Do you need to gain ground? Well, that's the only way you're really going to feel that useful on attack, I'd say, is building up towards that ultimate to initiate. Or because it's an extra mobility tool, you also can use it potentially to swing a fight. And this is an aspect of supports that I think is really key in Overwatch 2. As the team fight whittles down and you get into like a 2v2, Illari has the option to go Super Saiyan with a surprising boost of movement that she otherwise doesn't normally have. Once ML7 realizes that the enemy Kiriko uses Suzu, it's time to jump back into the fight and finish it while the enemy respawners are still coming. There's a key window here where chasing down these mobility characters that normally expect to be able to get away from a support, you can go pedal to the metal and go finish them off. You just need to hit that first 90 damage and it's going to snowball in your favor. So that's one fully charged headshot or like 1.5 charged body shot. ML even uses it as a tempo ult here, spawn trapping the enemy, which is the type of thing that we're going to have to investigate over time. What's the best use case of it? But I think the thought process is, because Illari is so defensive in nature, often using your ultimate to keep the enemy back and needing to retake into you as like a sniper who defends and heals a lot while holding position is better rather than letting the enemy set up at any point. But either way, the mobility boost is what allows you to do this. To go in, engage, and know that you're going to have your next outburst in time to get out as you're chasing down kills. Now let's talk about Illari's serious carry potential. I think most ranks are going to find it easiest to play her with a support like Mercy, or at the very least a teammate who's more defensive in nature, so Illari can go take poke angles herself. Because while a lot of her kit is fairly strong, the really crazy part to me is the ultimate. And while Nano and a lot of ults is just an insane combo usually, it's particularly strong with Illari because the damage amp you'll get from Nano will make it so that all you have to do is body shot an enemy and Sunburst will explode. But the insanity of this clip doesn't end there. ML7 is able to hold the high ground for an extremely long period of time, and the enemy makes the huge mistake of progressing the cart instead of flushing him out, which certainly happens in a lot of ranked games. It felt super surprising to me how fast he was able to build this second ult without even doing much healing at all. Holding his position and poking back back. His respawns were able to come through, and his second ultimate in this life was surely going to clear the cart. Kiri might be more nimble, but clever usage with her kit can surely extend your life. Let's look at a counterexample now on Caliseo and track the decision-making process ML takes as the fight starts to devolve and not go in their favor. With a Pylon set up to heal himself on the high ground, he's going to be able to survive to peek out to heal his Reaper and his retreating team. Repositioning back, he's trying to get in position to help teammates, but two of them go down as the Genji blade strikes. Parrying back, he hits shots to finish the Genji blade, but his team is still down, and unfortunately his ult misses. Still on the back foot, hitting more shots, takes out the enemy support, and gets again in one of those ideal ranges to be able to deal damage and still heal our teammate as they take a fight on the push robot. But as his team starts to get out of his line of sight, that's where it all goes awry. Other supports have ranged healing that's more effective. Illari can't really do more in this situation. Everything ML did here was basically perfect. She's a character that wants to peel back, reestablish, and deal with flankers first. The more you get split up playing with an Illari, the worse it's going to go for you. There's other supports that are more flexible in their flanking and repositioning. Illari is more of a static, set-up, bunker-style support. So if your formation is starting to get too split up, you're going to expect her to struggle to operate. Unless you hit your ultimate and all of the shots like we did in the Junkertown clip. As it turns out, we're on push, defending with respawn advantage, so the very next fight is going to be an easy retake for us, especially with the eliminations we got earlier, snowballing into an advantage later on our respawn. So keep that in mind as well. 5v5 in general oftentimes causes your hero to have severe limitations on where they're effective, and you more so want to apply where and when they're effective harder, as opposed to like never making a mistake or never having an inefficient moment. Sometimes the best case scenario is going to be parrying back and hitting as many shots as you can, setting up for the next fight. What I highly advise you don't do is chase your teammates into positions that you can't hold. Find the ideal ones at medium range, but if they rush off and die elsewhere, it's on you to then pick up the slack from the back line, hit your shots, and hopefully in the next team fight, they come back to you safely to get healed up. If you want to rush in with them and fight off in strange little rooms out of line of sight, there's other supports that do that. Guys, that's everything for today's video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please be sure to leave it a like. Don't forget to check out today's video sponsor, NVIDIA, and get yourself an Ultimate Invasion bundle when you pick up a 40 series card. And also while you're down there, you can click the link to check out ML7's stream. He's one of the best streamers we've had in Overwatch's history, and definitely one of the most impressive support players to watch. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe for our next one. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.